to introduce Allison Moon, a class of 2011 Lambda Fellow in genre fiction.
In honor of Andy, I'll be reading some lesbian erotica. This is from my novel, Lunatic Fringe, available on September 29th, wherever fine books are sold. Venus shivered over Archer's right shoulder as the sky gave up the rest of its blue for purple. Looking up at her lover, Lexi pleaded with her mind to memorize the moment, when lust and the fruition of lust flowed effortlessly, one after the other. Without intending to, she thought again of her mother, that she had once been 18 too, beneath a lover's body, falling in love with a certain person at a certain time. Then she considered her grandmother, and what she may have felt beneath the weight of the most perfectly beautiful person in the world, at the moment when stricken with 1,000 ways of saying yes. Did love-making beneath stars look similar from one generation to the next? Did cultural perceptions of gender and political bodies stretch their knotted hands back that far? Were they strong enough to infiltrate such a clear moment as two eager bodies falling in love? Lexi struggled to remove constructs restraining her in her memorization of the moment, lying prone beneath her lover. She returned her focus to the clarity of the scene, the breeze tracing across the saliva on her clavicle, the warmth entering her palm through the crown of Archer's head, so much happening and so much left to do. Lexi whispered, "I want you," and it was true. She squeezed her eyes shut, creating a catalog of sublimity. Lips on breast, fingers tangled in hair, the gentle scraping of teeth on flesh, the weight of body upon body, the sound, a quiet vocalized breath, of Archer's own pleasure as she moved her hand in Lexi. Like trying to catch a torrent in a teacup, Lexi felt ashamed for missing all the subtleties flowing over her now. The warmth grew unbearable. Too much, her brain sighed, but her body refused to listen, praying in its own language. Yes, yes, it sang. Archer's hand heeded the latter until Lexi's brain ceded its call for queller. Archer was lined in silver, her dewy flesh reflecting the moon, prostrate as if in prayer between Lexi's legs. Tongue, lips, spit shared, fingers curled, arms strong, bite, neck, voice, growl, all driving forward towards an edge. Instead she sank into warm depths beneath the surface of the world where it was dark and silent, far below the crashing waves that swirled overhead. From the distant and invisible horizon, a voice, her voice, dragging her to the surface of the world. It surged from the deepest part of her belly, a shattering, plaintive howl echoing across rock faces, flying to the ocean to break with the waves. Tree branches shuddered next to her, shedding their orange leaves in the wake of startled birds. Her cry seemed to outlast her breath, a howl that Lexi was unable to control, she could merely release. It pitched her like a seaweed forest in high tide, curling and tangling, mingling and dragging apart. Her howl echoed and faded. Then silence. Neither woman breathed, neither moved. The first thing Lexi noticed was the scent, moss and balsam, potent and undeniably hers. It was her body, her sex, her signature. It was herself, and it was everywhere. As Lexi blinked open her eyes, she felt Archer's mouth ease away from her, raising her face to meet her gaze. She could barely see in the lost light, but the moon, now full-bodied above the trees, cast depth on Archer's features. Soft, short, black fur feathered against the edges of her eyes like charcoal. A ridge of mottled gray ran from the tip of her moist black nose up to her forehead, where her two pointed, furry ears twitched. Her mouth curled at the edges into a lupine grin, highlighted by cream-colored fur that curved in the shape of a butterfly wing on each cheek. Tiny sirens sounded somewhere deep within Lexi's brain as Archer's throat began to tremble. High-pitched chatters came from Archer's wolf mouth, though her lips barely moved. "Lexi," Archer said, so quietly, so strangely. Lexi wasn't sure if she was really hearing her name at all. "Lexi," Archer said again, "this is a gift. It belongs to you." Lexi smiled, unsure of Archer's meaning, still reeling from the hormones crashing through her veins. She released the scruff in her grasp to stroke her lover's furry face. A gentle moment passed before she noticed her own hand, curled in the shape of a paw. 5 long claws curled from it like polished scythes. The sight hit her like a punch in the kidney. She pulled her hand away from Archer's cheek and placed it inches in front of her eyes to be sure she wasn't victim to any passion-induced tricks. Horror grasped at her abdomen with its icy fingers as she scanned the rest of her body, still open beneath Archer's. Her flesh was covered in light brown fur. A tail rose from between her legs, entwined snake-like with Archer's. Lexi whipped to her feet, throwing Archer onto her back. "Lexi, it's okay," Archer chattered urgently. "You're okay." But Lexi's shocked mind saw nothing beyond the black haze of her own horror. She launched herself off the cliffside, hitting the ground on 4 feet with a soft spring before tearing off into the dark forest, running from Archer and the beast she had made her become.